Turntable teachers. Turntable teachers.
And welcome back. I'm Mike with the Turntable Teachers, and class is officially back in session. We are here for another guest speaker episode. Finally coming back to the Massachusetts music scene. We're back home, kind of. This guy, when you guys see, we're cut to his background, you're gonna see all the Lakers stuff. So don't get confused. He's from Massachusetts, but he likes the Lakers for some weird reason. We'll probably get into it at some point later on. But I have Phoenix Rios on the show with me, and I'm so excited to have him. I would consider you probably like an experimental alternative hip hop artist. I would probably put you in. I almost feel like genre.
I've never even, I don't think I've had somebody like tell me what they would actually label me ever. So like alternative hip hop, I could definitely see that. Definitely. I feel like I'm real just lyrical. I love hip hop, man. So I'm also in like a big rap kind of guy. So that's kind of what I'm in for sure.
Oh, absolutely. No, you're definitely in the hip hop scene for sure when you break it down, but breaking it down further than that is so I like to do. I like to pick out the sounds. I mean, we're definitely going to talk. There's a lot to talk about on this episode. So I'm so excited to have you, man. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, dude. Turntable teachers, man. Turntable teachers, bro. This is dope, man. I'm just excited to like have fun and talk with you, honestly, because I've watched a couple of your things already, and they're just informative. And like I said, I had told you a little bit before we started, like you just seem like you're a real cool music head and like a real hip hop head, you know, to a degree. So like I'm just excited to chop it up with you, man.
Oh man, no, I'm so glad you feel that way, and like I said, I'm so happy to have you here, and glad that we became acquainted. I know you're familiar with Taha and Rolly, who I know a little bit as well. Taha on the show a while ago, and he and I are still close. Big shout out to Taha.
Big shout out to Taha.
Yeah,
man. Big shout out to Taha, and I really enjoyed that episode. That's definitely what put me on to you. Is that Taha's my guy. He's from this area, and we just have worked a good amount in just like the past year and got pretty close. Taha the Phoenix, man, and I listened to your episode with you, and he's grinding. He's like finding podcasts to be on to like promote his thing, and so I really respect his work ethic. And then I listened to your episode together, and I was honestly just like really, I'll say blown away. I don't even know if that's overdoing it or if I'm kissing ass right now, but like the reality is like I listened to your guys' podcast and it was a real good episode. Like it was like informative. I loved like the way you facilitated the conversation. You guys like touched on some dark things, dissected a lot of cool things. And Taha makes that kind of music where he puts a lot of attention to detail. You know what I mean? So like the fact that gave him a spot to also speak for it was like super dope. And the first thing I was like, man, when I drop music and I got myself ready and I got right and I'm right, I'm gonna make my move. So yeah, shout out to Taha for just like making this happen low key, indirectly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It definitely caught my attention when you were like, oh, I listened to your Taha episode. I'm familiar with him. We've worked together. I'm like, all right, I got to check you out. And then I heard Speed of Sound, which was your single off your latest project.
Nocturnal, man.
Which just dropped as we're recording this, just dropped last week, correct? Last Friday.
Yeah, last Friday, man. Last Friday. Or Friday, September 25th. Friday, September 25th. Yeah, from
when we're recording this. So
right.
But so at the drop of the episode, this has obviously been out for a few weeks now, and I just want to obviously say congratulations on the EP. I think it's really great. I listened to a lot of it right when it came out. I was listening to it last night as I was prepping for the episode, and kind of going off of obviously our conversation a little bit earlier about just being music heads and especially hip hop heads for sure. If you want to narrow it down, my favorite thing to do now is the evolution of music to me, man, is really, really insane. And I think that there's so much genre blending and bending music out there. Like you can't even pigeonhole certain things. Or certain types of music. They're just not, it's not one thing, right? So yes, I would consider you in the hip hop category, but on this project, man, you mixed in a lot of different things. You mixed in some jazz, you mixed in some lo-fi hip hop. Maybe that's the best way to describe your music,
Yeah.
might be lo-fi, but you've even brought in some atmospheric production, psychedelic. There's even a little neo soul. So, all that kind of for me is like goes hip hop, lo-fi, alternative hip hop, and then sort of the rest of what I just said. So but brought so much into it. So I was just kind of curious, like, what was your idea behind the project, the creation process of it, and what like creating this new body of work?
Yeah, definitely. And like it's interesting that like, I'm obviously the artist and I know what my influences are and I know what I listen to. And it's definitely a lot of those things that you're talking about. And, you know, labeling it neo soul, I'll say like maybe that's a little bit of a stretch, but like if you're hearing that, like I can totally see it, you know what I mean? And I want to embrace that because I honestly had no intention of genre blending or doing anything. I'm just rapping, man. And I think kind of like what you're talking about really is what I want to highlight the most is it just starts at hip hop for me. Like I just feel like hip hop is such a limitless genre, and I think in its roots, it's sampling, it's retaking and rehashing and cutting up in different ways things that aren't even originally hip hop. You know what I mean? So that's where so just captivated and super passionate about hip hop in the first place is because there's so much variety and variability in it, and there's so many different tones and feelings. But at the end of the day, I think for me, the genre categorization can be a complicated conversation, but for me, I feel like the most paramount thing is like it's hip hop. Like, you know what I mean? Hip hop is experimental by nature. Like it is progressive or just like innovative, and it's always meant to tap into something that's been done before, and it's always meant to do something that we've never seen. So like when it comes to like what I'm making right now and this whole Nocturnal tape, I'm really excited. I'm really proud of it because I feel like it's a step up from the last EP I did, which is called Take the Leap. Because that one I was just kind of really more just pushing myself to literally take the leap and put myself out there because I was a little self-conscious about my music. But with Nocturnal, man, I was just like got into a zone with my friends for like 3 weeks, focus on this, and like the recording of it all probably happened in like the span of a week and a half in my basement, like literally down there where we started this podcast off, where I was trying to make it happen, but it was just too loud and noisy in my house right now. That is where I recorded all of this. You know what I mean? With like my little setup that I got, and that's where it was like really more or less like just not focusing on what I'm making, but like making it and then fixing up, the results, and then making it concise and sequencing it, and you know what I mean, and taking it for what it is. Honestly, and I also feel like I did a little bit of just letting myself. I'm just more comfortable on the microphone now. You know what I mean? Just more comfortable. So that's how I feel. Or like, there's no real concept behind it, like, or wasn't so calculated at the beginning. It was like I made this in a week and a half with my friend, and terrible sleep schedule, so like we were fried at like 4 a.m, like just trying to make a song. Like the outro is literally inspired by like a cat that we have here, because I was dead ass in the basement, you feel me, like trying to come up with something and finish this track because I like the verses and I was just trying to get a hook, and this cat came by and I just freestyled something, you know what I mean? But like that really is a result of more confidence, because I was a lot more particular about a lot of my other lyrics and delivery, you know what I mean, on my first go, with just like a complete project. So this one felt good, man. Like it all kind of came together by itself, like really. And that's what I'm looking forward to challenge myself on the next one, is like get some kind of semblance of what I want to do in the future, you know?
Oh, for sure, for sure. But no, I think that your approach is actually very interesting, just because it seems like this all kind of came off the top. Like even like you said, like I noticed that too on Shadow's outro, that it was about a cat. I just like when I was hearing it, I was like, huh, I was wondering the backstory behind this, but it's just really just like you said, it just happened, And
Really, yeah. And
life, it just.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just gonna say it's a little corny, it's a little tacky, like in the moment or like even after it. Sometimes I'm like, but like it just happened and it felt very organic. So I was like, I want to put that out there. It was authentic, you know.
Oh, for sure. No, I think that in music, authenticity is oftentimes something that gets overlooked with artists. I think that that is at its core really the way that you can potentially really connect with another person on the other side of this, which is like a fan or someone that's listening to your music. Because there's some songs that they're bops, right? Or like they bump in the whip or whatever, like, and they're fun, but those often are not the songs that like move you and really like make you kind of either go to a different place or think about something different or something on a deeper level. um I got the sense with your music though that it came from a deeper spot than just, even though surfacely like these were just moments, you're living through them and just kind of being authentic with the moments, but like it felt honest, it felt real, and you did sound very confident. So I mean, if that's something you've been working on, clearly I think it's working out for you.
Yeah,
And
definitely something I've been working on. And have you ever heard the category of like bedroom rap? You know what I mean?
absolutely, we
I
had
feel like a
a
lot of that is what I'm into for sure.
oh, absolutely. No, and then I mean, yeah, I think some of the things I was mentioning earlier, they're just like some sounds and maybe influences that, not influences, but I'd say more sounds or patterns that I've heard in other music that I heard in yours. But I think bedroom pop works too, especially, or bedroom
Yeah,
hip hop, I should.
yeah,
Yeah, we got another artist, Heath 240, on here that really is trying to go in that direction more so. But shout out Heath, he's another fantastic
yeah,
artist. But
yeah. And like I think
yeah,
ultimately I don't. Sorry about that. I think ultimately I don't have a full intention to do this all the time. It's just what I've found actually seems to fit. You know what I mean? The category of artist that I like. But
absolutely. No, and it works out. I mean, it's for me. I noticed you're a Kendrick fan just from listening to the project, and I definitely got some Kid Cudi as well. And I think that if you're, between the ages of 22 or something like that, and
yeah,
27 roughly, like
yeah,
Kid
man.
Cudi probably changed your life in some way, shape, or form, or at least.
Is it that obvious, guys? That's for sure. I mean, like, dude, I'm a huge Cudi fan, and he was just a huge artist for me in my formative years, which I know a lot of people have that, and but I even to this day I just take his influence for like, you know what I mean, like his influence in me as like a role model while being a musician had to do more than just the music, you know. So I definitely have a lot of Kid Cudi influence, and I don't shy away from that. Obviously, I have that bar on my tape. Like I don't see the next Kid Cudi. I guess it's me then. You know what I mean? Because I just don't think there's anybody fulfilling that lane of like weird, like in the same or like weird and like I don't know. It's a Kanye West kind of lane too. Like it's like a weird, smoky, vibey, experimental, but cinematic at times kind of hip hop.
Yeah. No, that's often a hip hop that I can get down with, right? Like 1,000%. Like I was a huge fan of Cudi for a long time. I think Gambino's done a lot of that as well on
For
certain
sure.
projects. He's gotten into that space. You could definitely say that about Kanye, right? There's a lot of artists that you can probably lump into sort of that category, but I don't also think that a lot of them reached what Cudi did at the time, especially with his sound. Like I think he still in a way is finding it again, because I think there was a few years with Cudi that he went off and tried something different, which is fine. I just don't think it worked out for him. It works
Yeah.
out for some.
That's
It works out for some.
yeah,
Take a
no,
leap. It doesn't work. I don't think it worked for him when he took the leap personally. But
and I
he's
think yeah, I think even to that point. Sorry, not to cut you off. I don't know if
no,
I'm but I think to that point, like he took that L. I think knowing that was going to be a L, and it doesn't work out. But in terms of his discography, it stands out more of just he was experimental, you know. And there are people who like Speeding Bullet. You know, let's just talk about it. There are people who likes Speeding Bullet, but
absolutely.
I'm not the biggest fan of that album, but it was what it said was more than the music. It was more just like, as an artist, I'm gonna branch out and do something different. And like I think Kanye West, honestly, even though he's an older artist than Cudi, he kind of carried that torch for a while afterwards, where like he brought this Cudi kind of effect or image into the mainstream, and just sonically too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, with Cudi, I mean, I don't think you get 808s and Heartbreak without Cudi in a
Oh,
sense.
for sure, definitely not.
Like there's no, and even and then I feel the same way about the album oh my god, you don't get Yeezus without like a Travis Scott, because Travis Scott was really helping him get into that. Because if you go back and obviously listen to Rodeo, and you would listen to like Man on the Moon, you hear where Kanye actually grabs some of those influences. I think that's what makes Kanye, the musical genius where he is. I mean, say what you want about Kanye in other areas of life, but in terms of the musicality, his ability to take, an influence like that, but then make it his own, like he did with Travis Scott very early in their careers too, right? And same with Cudi.
Definitely.
Really for me, on 808s and Heartbreak, like Welcome to Heartbreak, the demo version even was one of my favorite. I don't know if you ever heard the demo version. It's hard to find these days. I love the studio album version that they ended up going with, but there's a demo version that I believe is better.
Really?
And it was really more. Yeah. I gotta find. If I ever find it, I'll send it.
I gotta say this though. I think this is a hot take. 808s and Heartbreaks isn't my favorite project of Kanye West, although it's like clearly, a Cudi influenced project. I think like for me, it doesn't hit the same way, but it resonates with a lot of people. You know what I mean? But I'm a big fan of 808s for sure. But like I think even interestingly enough is like the courage that Kanye has. You know what I mean? To like decide he's going to go left with it and just commit, and he's going to make it his way and make it palatable, or he's going to make it unpalatable, and we're going to, he has his brand established already. He knows we're going to listen to it. Like I think that, and that's even where I think he draws influence from artists like Cudi, or just like artists like them are experimental in that way. And that's what's special about it, is the courage, because like he just didn't have to make a Yeezus, he didn't have to make an 808s and Heartbreaks, I mean, he could have mailed it in, made another Graduation. He didn't have to make Beautiful Dark Twisted.
You're right. The taking risks factor as an artist is so important, and Kanye, so yeah, you're right, to your point, sir, Kanye did a lot of that. I don't disagree with you. I think 808s is not in my top 3, I would say, Kanye projects. I think for the moment that when it came out though, that project was so monumental because it started the trend. It really took what mainstream music was. If you look at just like, if you kind of go back and do some revisionist history, you see where the mainstream was. 808s comes out, and then what followed it. I'm not saying it was the one thing that did it, but it was certainly with the platform that Kanye had established to that point. It's tough to argue that it wasn't a big factor in where the direction that music went, right?
Definitely.
Especially hip hop.
Definitely.
So
I was actually just watching a Kanye West documentary like 2 days ago, one of these like fan made YouTube things. It's by a creator named Matthew. I don't remember his last name, but it's called Dropout. I was just watching this, and it was actually really well made. But like, for him to go to like battling with like a hip hop star like 50 Cent on Graduation, and then to like make an 808s, the Yeezus, or My Beautiful Dark Twisted, and then a Yeezus. It's just like I can respect how much he shifted just the sound of the game. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and going back to what I'm talking about, that was just a courageous thing to do, and completely opened up so many doors for other people. But like, and it's funny how I think in order for these sounds to kind of establish themselves, it takes a couple people to run the baton, and then someone like a Kanye kind of gets it last and really runs it all the way home. And now we all know the way,
Right, because who's to say? I mean, I would have to like dig back, myself, and I don't know the answer to this question. But you're right. Like, who's to say, that this type of music was a factor before Kanye just wasn't present in the main. Like, it's not like we were hearing it. You know what I mean? Maybe it was.
Exactly.
I think
Yeah.
streaming was in a different place at the time, so I don't know if it was as quite accessible. I mean, it was getting to that point. I think you still had 2008 probably with 808s, correct? Correct. 08, 09. So I
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
like
Definitely in that era. Definitely 2008ish.
right. So in thinking that, I think SoundCloud was a thing then. I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but
I'm not
because
completely sure. It's probably early, right?
yeah, because that it was like, well, how else would I mean? I know like before that, it was always like LimeWire.
Yeah.
That's how I'd find the old, or like iTunes, really, right? Like Napster, Rhapsody. That was like the stuff even before that. But like in terms of free music, just to stream, was SoundCloud a thing at that point? 'Cause I don't really know. Who knows? But
Yeah. I can't tell you.
either way, I don't know. I'm so sure someone will hopefully like look it
Yeah.
up for us. So I was curious though. One of my questions I wanted to ask you: favorite Kanye album? Now that since you kind of said 808s isn't your favorite, I'm curious. Or give me like top three, if you could
Yeah.
rank.
Definitely. Obviously, these things are hard. They're subjective. So I'm gonna go out there and inspired by Kanye, take the courage to give you guys what my favorite is. I think and this is personal favorite. I'll go like really personal favorite. Like top for me is Late Registration. I have a lot of nostalgia for Late Registration, and I think it sounds just a little bit more raw. I think and I'm a huge rap fan. I'm real big on the bars, the lyrics, and I think he was focused more on the rapping in that album. And then it goes College Dropout for me. And then third, of course, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and those things definitely can change and flip sometimes, and can definitely be shuffled around probably in any order. But like if I had to go just really like off the top of my head of what I know also truest by heart, like you know what I mean, in terms of
Sure.
raw amount of time listened to and memories made with these projects, that would be, it would go Late Registration, College Dropout, My Beautiful Dark Twisted.
I wouldn't argue that at all. I obviously, I mean, I think that is, I think I'd say two of the three that you put, I would put in my top three. I would say it's tough. Like with you, this is subjective, right? Obviously, it's personal. It can always change, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be. I feel like this could be different in a week or a month, but at the
Right.
moment, three for me is definitely Graduation.
Mm,
Or just the way in which like just the sound he went with. I thought it sounded pure. It was cinematic. I really enjoyed that one from top to bottom. I even thought he got a little personal on that one. Not that he never did, but Graduation was definitely one where I felt like it was a triumphant one for him.
for sure.
I toss it with these two. I would say just 1A, 1B, but if you twisted my arm, probably we'll go College Dropout 2, and that even pains me to say.
Hmm.
But that was one of my first albums I ever owned was College Dropout. And I remember having headphones just like this with a CD player, and I'd take it everywhere I went. Like everywhere I'd go, I'd be bringing College Dropout, the documentary, Get Rich Die Trying, and like
Ooh.
Speakerbox Love. That was what I
Oh
had like
man,
on.
that's like encapsulates that sound, all different kinds of sounds at that moment too.
Exactly, right? Like all that was coming out at the time. And those are the albums I owned. And then, at first hip hop albums I ever bought. And so College Dropout definitely like has a nostalgic feeling to me for sure. So it's tough to make that two. And especially, I think it plays basically all the way through. However, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy for me, man. I mean, I couldn't believe what he did on that experimentally. Like I really couldn't. There was just so much just just it was the nuances to that album are just incredible to me. Like I can't even explain it. It just felt on a different level in terms of the creativity. And I think for me as a fan of certain kinds of music, he hit what I like the most. Cause I know that one's polarizing, like a lot of his. Obviously Fantano got so much crap for giving it, for making it a 6, which I don't know. I think that's by far his best with College Drop right there. But I don't know.
I think it's like, Fantano, man, he's his own dude, and his ratings are subjective, and he's writing from a reviewer's, a critic's position, which I think he purposefully puts himself there in order to be as objective, or not even as objective, but as critically subjective as he could be. And obviously everybody has these different memories attached and has these different places in their lives that they were when they were listening to this music. And like, I have a real similar story with Late Registration, where like, Late Registration was an album that my dad had in his like CD changer in his old car. And we'd play that every morning. Like it would shuffle through a couple different discs, but we'd play that every morning. One of the discs was like a mix of just like old school hip hop stuff. And mind you, my dad's a DJ and a real hip hop head. So like, I'm running back jams every morning. And one of the biggest things we do is listen to that Late Registration thing. And just some of the ways it bumps, it bumps in a car. Like it just bops that speaker, bro. Like it's literally just like nostalgia hitting me like in the face, because of the memories of my father, you know what I mean? And then obviously the music still, for like objectively, is of a certain quality, so the fact that it ages well makes me look at it, hold it in even a higher regard.
His older stuff has all aged very well,
very well.
Because there's certain albums you go back to, and that you go, and they don't play the same. It just doesn't. It's not the same as it was, or it has, like you said, for lack of a better word, has not aged well. There's a few Eminem albums I can think about that with that, in particular, definitely parts of Encore, not the whole thing, because I think there are parts that there certainly did age well. But 50 Cent's another example too, like the Massacre. Really some of those albums, really, and anything after Get Rich did not typically age super well. But
yeah,
for me,
okay, depends who you're talking to, right? You know what I mean? And that's where it's funny how like it crosses over, because I definitely know a couple old heads that are playing like 50 Cent, and they're just like, artists know sometimes when 50 particular like comes on my speaker, or just a lot of the old throwback dudes, whether it's old Wayne or old 50, some of these things, like it's I think something sounding dated and aging well doesn't have to be mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
Like I think some of these things like hit where it's like, oh, this is that 2007 sound that was hard, and it still is hard. Like, you know what I mean? It's a different sound, different kinds of just wordplay, but it's hard. I think, even though, I'm saying all this, I'm not going to say that like all of 50's music has aged well. And he kind of hit his peak and then came down and then opened himself up to completely different things.
Right, which he's been very successful in, for sure. And like,
right,
that, yeah, that didn't really need the music. The music was almost to catapult him into a lot of other business ventures, in a sense. I feel like that's where it kind of went. But yeah. For me personally, Get Rich is probably one of the best hip hop albums of all time. I don't know like where you would rank it, but it has
dude.
It's iconic. It really is. You're absolutely right. The cover is iconic, the whole thing. And it really, like, when you listen to it and you play it back, you're just like, that was just that tough, like you said, that tough, gritty G-Unit street shit that was like really just prominent in the early 2000s. He went a little commercial after that, which that was, and that was my one, just for me personally, like I said, that was my one gripe with him. Even then, those songs like Candy Shop, just a little bit, like, obviously you hear them now, like, oh yeah, that was classic, but like, for me personally, that's something I'm going back to. I don't go listen to just a little bit, or
of
like,
course. Just a little bit is hard, though. I'll say just a little bit is kind of hard, man.
No, but
I definitely think, yeah, these aren't songs you're running back personally. You're definitely not running them in the bedroom, like just like when you're like on your own chilling. But they have their time and their place, and I think the fact that it's aged, even if it's 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, the fact that it has some replayability is like a testament to how good the quality of music was. And to kind of tie this back into like what we were talking about with Kanye and My Beautiful Dark Twisted, like uh I think objectively it's just like the kind of attention to detail and creativity that was committed in raw like man hours of just like mixing this thing down, going away to like isolate yourself like that, and the ideas of just literally just doing something different that maybe you just conventionally wouldn't think would even sound good or would be what the people would want or what you think Kanye has to do. Like, you know what I mean? Back to what we were saying, like Kanye just didn't have to do that. Like the fact that he went on that limb and like made it sound good, just even the quality of the mixing and mastering, and you know what I mean? Like that has to be respect.
Oh, absolutely. From the start with the track with Nicki Minaj, it's like it's mind blowing. Like even that Nicki Minaj to me, like with the spoken word at the beginning, like obviously the really grand pianos and
narrating and
all the narration, like that build, and then obviously, and then that when that beat drops, bro, like that album to me just gets me going, and I think it's just that perfect kind of. It starts high, it stays high the first 6 or so tracks, and then it mellows out, but it's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous mellow out. It's not just like we're gonna just play some progression. We're just gonna play some some of the later cuts, right? We're gonna deep cut songs. It was more like again, more luster instrumentation. The instrumentation, the whole thing was just incredible.
It's ridiculous, and for me, I love that project because it has a lot of it's pop in the way that it incorporates rock. You know what I mean? And like these guitars and like or piano, like, and then it's so hip hop in the fact that it's like can be sometimes like loud and in your mouth or like in your mouth in your face, you know what I mean, really clashing, right? But I think it just like goes to show that like I don't know, there's so much space and potential in this genre to still like have like an integral hip hop feeling, right? Whether it's like just funny wordplay and bars, like have a toast to the douchebags, you know what I mean? Like those things, like that's a bar. It's not at all like super complex or articulate, but putting that against that kind of music, like, you know what I mean? Amplifies it and heightens it to a way that makes it come off much more genuine and sincere, or it's just easier to resonate with, you know what I mean? And that's why we all have this obsession and we can't stop fucking kissing Kanye's ass, is because he did stuff that was brave, courageous, like outside the box thinking, when like he was also at like a pop star level where he could sit back and like just chill. He could make another graduation. He could have dropped like 7 yays, like those little yay projects. Like he could have dropped 7 of those and mailed it in, but he didn't. Or at least for a large part of his career, he just hasn't. You know what I mean?
Exactly. No, I think that you make a lot of great points, and so to your point of like the different instrumentation, because like as I'm going through the track list, like Gorgeous had that almost like harder rock guitar chord on it that was rooted, and Cuddy sounded good on that.
Amazing.
Oh, the way that was mixed is just incredible to me. And then he was obviously using still a lot of like a lot of the sample bass beats that he was doing, like since he's really done his whole career, talking like Devil in a New Dress, excuse me, or Power, right? Yeah. And then some of the grander stuff like All the Lights, and really the 2 highlights for me though on this album personally from is So Appalled. Oh my god, the amount of bars that are on that one track.
Stupid.
And and Jay-Z backs it up the whole. I'm like, you got.
Stupid.
It's like it's just
Stupid.
that put Sci-Hi on the Prince on the map for me, like with that song in particular. It's just so good. And then of course, like big fans of us with our blog when I did the top 50 songs of the 2010s. Runaway was number 2. I mean, it's one of my favorite all time
Yeah.
songs, not even just songs, because that piano, bro. Like, oh,
I mean,
it's
dude, just like think about how that song is. There's so much time you could spend dissecting and getting on a deeper level with that song, whether it's the lyrics or the instrumentation. Or you could put that thing on the radio and like let that shit rock, man. Like that shit is like like that melody is still just like so captivating enough to where you can listen to it casually. Or, you know what I mean? You could dive into like just how much work it takes to assemble something that sounds this seamless and gorgeous. You know what I mean?
even movies have scored it. Like I can't
Exactly.
remember which off the top of my head, but like I do remember like there's definitely plenty of movies or TV shows and entertainment's been scored and sampled, and oh my god, when you hear it, you automatically know what it is. It's so recognizable. It's just like the Get Rich or Die Trying cover. It's like, oh yeah, Get Rich. Like
Yeah,
boom,
man.
I know where I was when
Right.
I can remember what time of year that was, how old I was, all that stuff. With Runaway, you hear those beginning piano chords. You're like, yep, we're toasting the
Yeah.
douchebags.
Right, dude. And I'll say this, like for me, like Kanye is such a large influence too, because I'm very, very interested and passionate about being like a multimedia kind of artist. You know what I mean? Like a just like I'm very passionate about the music and really hip hop at my core. But I feel like like in hip hop, I want to, I want to express myself in all different kinds of mediums. You know what I mean? I really want to make a hip hop movie that has an original hip hop soundtrack that is talking about some hip hop ass subject matter, and you know what I mean, with some hip hop ass characters and actors and like and obviously like like that for me means just people of color all day. But like the subject matter doesn't have to necessarily be like the stereotypical kind of hip hop stories. I just want it to stories to be told through a fully encompassing like lens and you know what I mean, and really assemble something larger than just the album and larger than because that dark twisted fantasy short movie is like one of the most inspirational pieces of work for me, just because like I feel like even just there, like there's a little bit where he didn't go just far enough, I think. And who the fuck am I? Like who the hell am I? But like I think like I want to see that short film go the length of the whole album, but with scenes. You know what I mean? Like real scenes and narratives that maybe are short, or maybe they're vignettes, but like they come in, they're real talking scenes, and then it leads into the music. Like that's what I want to do that. And that's why Kanye West, Childish Gambino, and like Kid Cudi, like those are all artists that I've seen that like are also passionate about doing it visually, and like doing it on stage, whether it's acting or just artists that are just coming from hip, doing something completely different now. You know what I mean?
No, I do. I love something you said, where as like I think hip hop has become, I think even now it's more inclusive than it ever has been, and it's so creative. And it's bringing so many different kinds of people in, and I think now it's like you don't have to be that rough around the edges, tough, gritty type of persona to do hip hop. Like hip hop, there's so many different now lenses and perspectives and entry points into the genre, and it's just expanded. I think there's just the evolution of the genre in the last, even let's call it 10 years. I mean, it's really been evolving in the last, since the 2000s, hip hop has, but it really hasn't been a genre that's been around for that long. I think you even brought up a little earlier, where it's just a genre that's always bended and taken different shapes and has been experimental. So
Exactly.
we're in the new phase of hip hop, which is this bringing in all these different types of genres, all these different kind of sounds, and different kinds of people getting involved in the hip hop sector. I mean,
Yeah.
look at even like James Blake. Are you a fan of James Blake?
Of course not. Oh,
No?
wait. Sorry, James Blake. That's like a pop artist, right? James Blake.
Yeah.
For some reason I automatically thought Blake Shelton or just like a
Blake,
country artist.
no, I didn't go down that rabbit hole. Although
Yeah, James Blake. I'm a big fan of like Chance the Rapper, and I've heard like James Blake, collaborations, and like Francis and the Lights. I'm definitely a fan of those kinds of like, yeah. So did not mean to diss James Blake right there.
no. Well, yeah, I was about to say, I was like, oh my gosh, no. Shelton, yes, I believe Blake Shelton did a song with Pitbull, and I like shat all over it on one of our like.
Good. Dude.
I believe it was. It's bad. I think it was Blake Shelton. It was Pitbull, and he crossed over with some country artist, and it did not work. It just did not work.
Jeez.
James Blake is somebody that I would never have associated with hip hop, but he's somebody that got into the scene, and like, I mean, especially his last album, while all of it was not hip hop, there was definitely some hip hop inspirations. I mean, he had Metro Boomin on a couple of songs. He had Travis Scott. He had Andre 3000. Yeah. I mean,
and at what point can you really say that like hip hop isn't just influencing every genre right now? You know what I mean? Because it's just popular music.
Absolutely. That's kind of my point with it. It's just like it's bringing everybody in when it's I think it's a really beautiful thing that Definitely. It's a culture that is obviously so just cherished. I mean, obviously it did start, and our rural communities and in our urban communities, throughout the country, and really was a part of Black culture, but it's been embraced, or in African American culture, but it's been embraced, really by everybody now, and obviously we have them to thank for it, but it's I got to give the respect where it's due and the credit, but where it did start, but it's really been embraced, like I said, by a lot of different people, when for a long time it wasn't embraced by a lot of different artists, but that's a lot of music has gone through that type of thing. I mean, even when my mom tells me, when she was growing up, like Elton John was seen as just like he was a Elvis, even when they both of them, they were very provocative and, not the conventional artist. And you look at them now, it's like, those are the classics. You know what I mean? We look, revisionist history is like, they were incredible, right?
Definitely. Well, I think it's important to note, though, and important to add, is Black music in the United States has always been Black musical culture has just always been the music that has eventually been embraced and has been the soundtrack to just this country. You know what I mean? And Elvis is the perfect example, where it's like, Elvis is just famously ripped off what he's seen Black artists doing at the time, whether it was dancing and musical influences, or he was making covers of Black songs. Like, that just really goes to show that, I think just music in Black communities has always been so influential, and it's always been experimental. It's always been authentic. And then it just is on the rest of the country to kind of catch up to us. You know what I mean? Like, to kind of, embrace it fully, holistically, you know what I mean? And to break through the mainstream, because what does mainstream really mean, and like, what does being embraced by everybody really mean? It really means like influence market in the country, which is white people, you know what I mean? So like, and like you were going before talking about the evolution of hip hop. Well, there's definitely totally radically different things happening in hip hop right now because of how accessible it is, how widely acceptable it is now. But like, I'm such a really big hip hop head and a big believer in just the fact that that has been the premise of the genre the whole time. It just wasn't embraced at this level, or wasn't making money for people who saw the value in it just yet. But like, that the notion of collaborating and doing different things has always been there, because that's what people had to do, because it was a genre that you could make when you was broke, you know what I mean? Like you didn't, like, if we're really just talking about rap, and I could rap on the corner, I could write bars right now, you know. It's highly accessible in that sense, and I just feel like it's always important to recognize the fact that, like, in the 80s, you know, before like even golden era hip hop, like just like, you know, Big Daddy Kane, like Eric B. Rakim, Tribe Called Quest, or like, you know, Grandmaster Poobah, like Cool Herc, like all these dudes are like doing hip hop, and like it's kind of underground, but like that in it of itself is a different kind of experimental, you know, uh exploration, you know what I mean? And that takes courage, and just even Rakim getting like, Rakim really just pushing his pen to a different level. Like to us now, it just sounds like, oh, this is what hip hop is supposed to sound like. But at that time, no one was doing that. You know what I mean? That was experimental. And Tribe Called Quest, like, you know, like that backpack era of rap, like as they get older, this whole side of, before even Kanye, of the kids who are trying to make hip hop and not be tough. You know what I mean? Like there was that diversity in it at the conception of hip hop, and there was that acceptance and embrace from the actual community of itself, I think, all the way since the beginning. And it's just been, it's continued to, you know, now just dominate the country as more people are just being brought into the fold because of social things and racial things and economics really becoming, the music industry seeing hip hop as something that's profitable, you know what I mean?
No, I love how you put that too. You articulated that so well, and I'm learning myself, just kind of taking it through. I agree. I mean, even for Tribe, like one of my favorite all time too. Like way back, I don't think you get, you know, you don't get Gambino, and you certainly don't get people like Logic, even Outkast, right? Like,
I mean, Kanye
all these
says it
people that,
himself all the time. Kanye talks about Q-Tip being one of his biggest inspirations in Tribe Called Quest. You know what I mean? Like they are, for me, like backpack rap at the beginning. And backpack rap is really more just like a notion that like you don't have to be the gritty guy. You know, you can be your own thing.
No, and I think it really did bring a lot of like like said, different people in, and of different tribe is influential like none other in terms of backpack rap. You're absolutely right. And then even when something you mentioned too, like, I mean, it goes back to, you know, the black influence goes back to the Harlem Renaissance, man. I mean, when you go back that far with not only music but, you know, poetry and writings. I'm an English teacher, so it's definitely something for me, like, you know, when I've gone back and seen just literature and how it all kind of, you know, was a reflection of each of the time, you know, that's kind of the lens I like to take in with my students is, you know, how does this, you know, whatever we're working with, whatever text we're working with, like, you know, how is it a reflection of the time? How can we relate it to today? And that's really kind of the lens. And then what other texts or other mediums can you potentially connect it to? So it's really like that text to self, text to world, text to text type of thinking. But
English.
yes, English class I'm talking about.
Real humanities.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, I always say that too. It's like, I teach humanities. I don't teach English. I use the English, or I use the books, the literature, right? The poems. I use it as a tool. It's a lens for looking at people and humanity. And there's so many different takes that I could sit here and talk about it for hours, but it's one of those things where it's the same deal in music where you know, that jazz, let's take jazz for as an example. I mean, there's a reason why jazz clubs were quote unquote underground. They weren't, you know, as something that was supposed to be really, it was every era really had that type of genre that was seen as the
that
devil.
had a lot of resistance. Yeah, there was a lot of resistance from it, from the mainstream, or from not to cut you off, but from the mainstream and from the popular music industry at the time. And that's also why I think it's tricky even with categorizing music, you know what I mean? Because for so long, these things that were made by Black artists that were experimental were just race records, you know what I mean? It was classified by no other criteria except their race, you know, and who knows how many people that's pigeonholed, you know. uh
The Grammys
so
changed that. They still do that
yeah,
with their categories.
exactly.
Urban, what is urban contemporary
Yeah, urban or
like,
hip-hop, you
what
know
is
what I mean?
no,
And
yeah, like it doesn't make sense to me to continue to do that, because even Tyler the Creator said that when he won for Igor, and rightfully so. He was like, "Why did I win? Why was I not nominated for Album of the Year though? Like,
right,
why was I urban contemporary? Why?"
exactly,
And people give him a lot of
exactly.
backlash for it. It's kind of like they're like, "Oh, just shut up and accept the award." It's like he's right. It's been
Yeah, I mean, anybody who's given backlash, I didn't see a lot about that. I'm definitely, obviously, I have artist centric pages that I'm following all the time that are just like, yeah, he's right. You know what I mean? But some people do want other people to, like, you know, some people just feel like it's all semantics, and like the wordage isn't that important. But
I think
that's what he was trying to say. It is. It's not just about this music award. It says something socially. You know what I mean? It says something about where academies like that and organizations are like that are trying to say you stand, you know, relative to other artists based on these arbitrary things that aren't music related. You know what I mean? And that's like what the statement is.
no, and I'm glad he said it, and I'm glad somebody in the industry. I mean, maybe other people have said it before too. I'm obviously he might not be the only one, but that's something that we even talked about when we did some of our Grammy reviews when we first became a podcast. Our very first Grammy reviews. I can remember where it was in that episode, but we did mention that we're at the time we were like, why is this still categorized as such? Like, why is that verbiage still being used? You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
you're right. It is still, I think, unfortunately, the way of they're systemically speaking, there are, there are institutions in this country that are still, structurally in, olden times, or times that are really outdated at this point, and things that we should have kind of fixed a long time ago. I don't if people from the African American community are saying this urban contemporary category is not plausible. I mean, it shouldn't be that big of a deal to either rephrase it or eliminate it. Why even just put
right.
their categories that they mean, or make more nominations in one category? Like, there's a lot of different ways you can fix that. It's a fixable situation, I feel like, personally.
Definitely. I think at the end of the day, it's like music is not different than anything else in this world, and it's all informed by like what's happening in real world society, you know what I mean? Or a lot of it is informed by that stuff, or especially like awards, and because these are all organizations that of course are influenced and are also just products of whatever is happening in actual society, and they're gonna skew towards that way, and or have ideas and values that come from that. And we just, the fact is, like, this is just a country born from slavery, you know what I mean? And the enslavement of people of color and African Americans, and that has and will forever, factor into everything that's made, or everything that's going on afterwards. You know what I mean? And we're always trying to push that needle to which I think we're doing. We're always trying to push the needle to just undo that, or address that and account for that, and build alliances and get on more common grounds. But things like the Grammys, like these big organizations, they're hard to penetrate and really change. So it takes big artists who actually are getting handed the mic to say things like Tyler did, just to throw it into the larger conversation of the country. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. And I agree. I think that, let's get piggybacking off something else you had just mentioned, is and that I think that I'd even said a little earlier too, was this like art, all forms of art, where you're talking about, you know, music or literature, poetry, paintings, all that, they're really a reflection of the time. And I think that, you know, like you're saying, that, you know, a lot of the music that's being put out now is a lot about what's going on. I mean, just people that can't or listen to the audio version of this and not the music, I'm literally wearing a Run the Jewels shirt right now. Like, I mean, we get Run the Jewels 4 without, you know, I mean, I actually, I shouldn't say that, because Killer Mike's been, you know, an advocate for Black Lives Matter and just, you know, social reform for a really long time. So I shouldn't say that. But I mean, do we really get what Run the Jewels 4 was without everything that just happened this past year? I personally don't think we do.
Of course not. And that's why, yeah, and that's where art is so important and so transcending in that way. And like, we don't get it to Pimp a Butterfly without you know, everything that's happened in 2015. And this is where like art has that balance, or there is that paradox that is where it's like, is the world informing the art? Is the art reflecting the world, or does the world reflect art? And I think it happens. I think they overlap, you know what I mean? I think there are times where the art is completely a reflection of the world, and then encapsulates that, and that feels good, and then we can dissect it. And then there are there's other potential for art to be put out there that actually changes reality for us later on in the future, in like the real physical world, because it, whether it's like enlightening people or teaching people to be empathetic, or just introducing like, man, like Nas albums, man, like Nas will throw out things that you literally need to look up in a book, and then once you do, you just got actually a little bit smarter in your real world. You know what I mean? Like that was like, that had nothing to do with him just reflecting on his own world, but that had something to do with him as an artist wanting to send a message and have you open up certain pathways to your brain and certain connections that like, or just throw concepts and ideas in front of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. These are the conversations I attempt to have with my students, and especially like, I mean, I use music in the classroom often. I don't say all the time, but often, because, and especially when I do poetry, because there's so much about what you can learn through hip hop, especially with rhyme scheme, you know, repetition, metaphorical language, you know, all really the things I'm trying to teach my students. It's a really accessible way to kind of navigate that, but it's also these conversations we're having too. And I teach a course called Contemporary Texts, and essentially that's modern literature, modern you know, books, and
Right.
that's really the goal, is to, you know, look at these books and say, okay, and the literature and the narratives and everything, and just reflect on it and say, okay, so what is this book trying to tell us about, you know, what's going on or what was going on at the time, or what's going on. Well, like, for example, I teach The Kite Runner. That's one of the contemporary books that I teach, one of my favorite books. And, you know, you can actually learn a lot about really what happened in the Middle East at that time, the early 2000s, late 90s, with the rise of the Taliban, where it's like, you know, if you don't have those stories and that perspective, and a book like The Kite Runner to allow that framing to happen, you know, I think if The Kite Runner was written a little earlier, and it was a little bit more of a wide range, but I think of a more accessible book than it used to be, for sure. It's definitely more accessible now, but I think you eliminate a lot of the stereotypes that were happening post 9/11 when it came to the Middle East, where and it really it's enlightening, and it's something that I want the kids to read. And there's another book out there, it's called Exit West, that I read, I teach, and I pair it with another book called Enrique's Journey. It talks a lot about immigration, and I pair it with a lot of different HBO documentary that was done about, you know, really what happens with Central American refugees that are trying to actually get to this country. Why are they coming here in the first place? You know, you're hearing a lot in the news about, you know, for the last, even I'd say 10 plus years, it's been, oh, they're just coming over here, they're raping, they're killing, they're taking our jobs, and blah, 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 blah. And there's just so many different other sides and stories that are about these places that we don't even understand if we don't continue to dive into them and really learn about them instead of just grabbing headlines from the news. And that is the beautiful thing I think about social media. There's a lot of backlashes to it, and really podcasting, all these different sources now, where in the early 2000s, that feeling of fear, and that really drove a lot of those stereotypes after post 9/11. I think, in a way, maybe I could be wrong, but it could have potentially been avoided if social media had been if there was more accessibility to some of the resources we have now. I think now it's more just willful ignorance. If you don't want to educate yourself and you want to believe a headline instead of, reading into it or whatever, that's your prerogative at this point. There's really no excuse anymore. Not that there really was, but there really isn't at this point to teach yourself and educate yourself about what's really going on and the history behind some things.
Yeah. I mean, I that's what's, first of all, I had a couple things I wanted to say after that. It's so sick that you're a teacher. It's just dope. Like I think it, like, that's just amazing that, like, like your decisions with your curriculum, like, obviously we don't all remember, I'm not sure what grade you teach, but we don't remember every English assignment we had, but sometimes that does influence people, you know what I mean? So it's just so funny how your choice with books and your choice to connect certain themes and expose your students to certain things can and probably will, have some kind of influence on their perspective, you know what I mean? And you're going to help in the expansion of their perspective, which is also where art has all of its power, you know what I mean? It's art is something that transcends just our, I'm getting all heady and woo woo, but it's something that transcends our physical bodies, you know what I mean? And just our natural impulses. It's something that, like, is truly can be, as corny as is just a window into a different world or into a different mentality and a different way of thinking.
No, and I want to quickly note too, I mean, I say this to them as well, but, like, it's a learning curve for me. It gives me opportunity to actually learn about a lot of this stuff as well, because in order for me to drive conversation, I this year especially, I've really tried to come off of the phrase that I'm just a teacher, because who am I? I still have so much to learn at myself about a lot of the things that I quote unquote teach, where I've almost framed it as like, I'm learning with you guys. We're going to learn together. If I don't know the answer, I'm never going to be that guy that's going to just give you some BS response. I'm going to actually be like, I don't know the answer to that, but let's figure it out. Let's look it up. Or I want to hear it. Different sides to certain things and whatnot, and different perspectives. But, I'm no expert. And I think that is so important for all of us, no matter what age we are. I think there's a population of people out there that have hit a certain age and they think they've learned everything and that's it. And that's that. And, I just think that, the importance of what I'm going to take away from being a teacher the most is that learning continues to happen throughout your entire life. And that school doesn't have to be the medium in which you learn. And if I can make it a place where I can foster that, that's the goal, right? It's to guide them to really, because I tell them all the time, I'm like, this is your class. It's not mine. I'm not going to sit up here and preach to you about my thoughts and my opinions on things. And I'm going to tell you, this is what I know. This is what I've found. Do your own research. What have you found? What can you add to this conversation? How can you help this cause, this issue? Because, some of my kids, it kind of broke my heart a little bit because they talked a lot about this the other day. They're like, I was asking them, we were having a conversation. They were saying, we feel like there's a lot of pressure on our generation. I don't want to speak for our entire generation. One of my students was saying, but she says, there's a lot of pressure on us to quote unquote change the world, that we're going to be the change. And that is something that, where I think we're having a hard time as a generation grasping to, one, because we're still young, but two, because that's a lot to put on, 14 to 18-year-old kids and even a little bit younger. Right. So there's so many different sort of factors that, you know, they feel overwhelmed about it. But, you know, again, like my final thing here with this is just like, my whole thing is to just make it, like I said, a place that can foster, you know, different opinions and different perspectives and different, and really just kind of bring us all to a different level. And in theory, you know, they take this with them, and, you know, they understand that, okay, like, I have to have this frame of mind as I navigate my life, you know, like, it's not so much of a school mindset. It's like, okay, what, I heard something, what does that mean? What don't I know about it? What do I know about it? How can I relate to it? What more should I know about it? And kind of asking yourself those types of questions, and asking questions that, you know, will actually, you know, give you a thought, some kind of thought provoking. And I hate when people like refer to just statistics, or they just use one thing and they're like, this one thing is real, and this is a thing because of this. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, you have and I see it all over social media, where people try to take one statistic or one person's point of view that has some authority and justify it as the truth. And it's just, you can't navigate life that way, because you're gonna close yourself off to all these different just tidbits of life. And, you know, we're all different people, we've all had different experiences. So that's really what the root of what I'm trying to do. It's an imperfect system still, you know. It's that is not, I haven't exactly quite fully figured out yet. I'm still learning with everything, but but that's the beauty of it. And if they know that I'm vulnerable, then hopefully that makes them be a little vulnerable too. And, you know,
I think that kind of authentic energy, especially by children and people that are younger, gets read very quickly, and I think it gets received well. And I think one of the key things you said there is that you're not there to necessarily like you don't have to you know, you don't have to set this line as like, I'm a teacher, you're a student, but you're here to guide them, and you're more like guiding them in their process of learning. And we should all be lifetime learners, right? I think with what you're essentially, you know, saying right there is that there are people who take the first thing they learn and then extrapolate that towards everything else in their lives, and like let that inform everything else, and take, you know, just learn in small pieces. And for some reason, you let that be the lens that everything for, where learning is about, I think, trying to constantly, you know, learn, or, you know, trying to constantly open up your mind, and you know, additionally acquire new knowledge to the database that is your brain. And the real goal is not to become the smartest necessarily. I think just the skill of learning, or the habit of learning, is most advantageous, or just like most beneficial, when you're trying to constantly put it at use. You know what I mean? When you're constantly trying to find more, that really is, it's not about finding enough or finding all of the quote unquote right information. It's about like finding as much information as you can, being excited when new information presents itself, being open-minded to not just research what you agree with, but taking time to research the other sides, leaving any stone unturned. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
In the same way, then that crosses over from English to science. You know, that's with everything. I'm so sorry, Mike. Could I pause for a second though to get a laptop charger?
Yes, go ahead. Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
You're good.
All right. Sorry about that, Professor.
You're good, man. Don't worry about it.
But I do have somewhere like I kind of wanted to bring the conversation towards. I'm genuinely
Do it.
I'm genuinely interested. So I think it's amazing, and I think that your authentic energy is gonna be read by all of your students, all the people you interact with in life. and it even translated, for me on camera over the microphone. I'm a little out of breath. I just ran downstairs to get that laptop charger. um, but and that's an amazing quality to have, and I can tell just by like the kind of music you like and the way you speak that you're a learner yourself, and that's probably why you feel like teaching is so amazing for you. But I'm interested, like, what is your dream job? Because I'm trying to do the performer thing. I'm trying to find my way to be the rapper. But like, you seem to be passionate about the teaching, passionate about the music and the content creation. There's something else that we had just mentioned earlier today that you were talking about.
I coach basketball as well.
And you coach basketball, yeah.
Lakers,
so, like,
yeah.
Right. What is we're in the finals, baby. Respect it. 9:00 tonight, ABC. But so what's your dream job? What is your dream job description, title? What is your end game, Professor?
Well, I mean, I think for me, actually, believe it or not, that's a tough question. I would love at some point in time to be a professor at a college level. I think that I would really benefit there. And I envision this podcast. I have it in my head of where I want it to be. It's been there for quite some time, and I'm working at it every day to get it to where I want it to be, or where I envision it. I have to sometimes take a step back and remind myself, because there's times where I don't feel like it's going as fast as I want it to, or I'm not I'm not quite where I want to be, or it's taking a little bit longer than I expected. I think I have to sometimes remind myself that I can't have expectations, first of all, and second of all, to enjoy the journey and enjoy every moment and really be present in the episode that I'm editing or episode that I'm prepping for or that I'm conducting. Because it's true, I've said this a lot of times off air and on air, that I really learn a lot from the people that I have on this show. And I think that this show, I envision it to be an educational place for not only music, but I have some things in the works that we're going to be talking about some bigger topics that have much more to do than just music. I even have the partnership I just struck with Jay Faith out of Lowell and Michael Settle in Iowa, who has a fitness brand, and shout out B Leafs, who's doing some, and Hex, who are all doing some stuff for us and content. We really want to try to educate people, through Jay Faith's brand, Right Mind. That's why we partnered with them. We thought it just worked. So it's really, I think, for this brand, for this company to be a company, you know what I mean? I think I need to start seeing it as that. I need to start seeing myself as an entrepreneur. It's something that I'm still uncomfortable with, because I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. I never envisioned myself being that way. And in the last few years, I've really gotten into that mindset. I love teaching. Ideally, I want to continue to do it as long as possible. And it's something that fulfills me. I think it's important work. It's definitely difficult. I'm not gonna lie about that. It's a hard job. It's something that, it takes a lot of energy out of me, but it's one of the most rewarding things. And, I do see myself, I think, like I said, teaching for a while, or, who knows. Dream would be to teach some, some adjunct courses, like just be an adjunct professor on entrepreneurship or, podcasting potentially, if that, because podcasting is such a big thing. I would love to teach like a master course on podcasting. I've helped two people, a friend of mine and my girlfriend's coworker. I've helped them grow their own podcasts. So I know what it takes to start one. And I know I could help people in that area. Even one of the kids at my school approached me, because it's kind of gone around the school that I have this platform, and they want to start their own podcasting club. So that's something we're talking about at the school as well. And so I would love to be an adjunct professor about something like that, or teach about, like I do a humanities course and run this company full time. You know what I mean? That would be the dream. And then Also to coach. I have envisioning a camp that I was going to launch this spring. Unfortunately, COVID kind of,
Oh wow,
didn't.
dude. Wow, that's
Yeah,
that's amazing.
yeah, yeah. So I've been coaching for 7 years. It's funny. Like I talk about all this, and I'm like, oh my god, I coach too. It's here. I will say this. I'll just be keeping 100, and it's in transparent. It's becoming more progressively difficult to juggle all three,
Yeah.
and I love all three individually, and I need to continue to do it while I'm young and while I have the energy and the time. I just know that long term, I don't think I can sustain how I'm doing this. So I know that at some point there's going to be pivots to all three, or maybe one of them or two of them, or whatever it ends up being. Great. I mean, I had envisions of coaching in the college ranks, or even going pro, like to the pros at some point.
Dude, you're a hooper, man. You're a hooper. Like
Yeah.
I definitely did. That's definitely something I'm learning, and I didn't pick up on any of the episodes that I've seen. But like, that's awesome, dude. That is super sweet. Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you were saying as I cut you off right there.
It's a definitely a balance. I think you even asked me a little earlier too, like what's my work-life balance like? And it's like, it's something I'm still working through, because I struggle with working so hard and so much. And I don't say that as like holding myself to a
Nah, no, you're just being honest with yourself, man.
who I am. Yeah, it's just who I am, and it's actually even like a detrimental thing at the same time, because you do need breaks. Like it's just reality. I've learned that too. It's like physically, mentally, like I need my proper sleep. I'm trying to tell myself now where it's like, okay, I don't work on certain days. I'm not going to work on podcast stuff, or certain days I'm not going to touch teaching stuff, and certain days I'm blocking off, like Saturdays and Sundays, especially. Like I'm taking Saturdays for the rest of the month to go do hikes and up in the mountains and
Yeah.
just get away a little bit. Just any way that I can. You shut my phone off for a half an hour, read for a little while, and just shut off as much as I can. Listen to music, right? Not as a podcaster, not as a music reviewer, but as just a consumer, so because I don't want to lose the love of listening to music, right? Because
Yeah.
I don't want to make it seem like it's all work.
Right.
So I
And
got a long-winded answer.
No, sorry, yeah. As we get older, we have to start scheduling those things, like listening to music. You know what I mean?
Yeah, unfortunately, it is something that I'm still working around. And like I said, just in closing with this, I just feel like people should just pursue what they love. I mean, I love my life. I love what I do. I wouldn't change it. It has my envisioned of, like I said, of what I wanted to do has changed. I mean, years ago, I wanted to coach in the college ranks. I have an uncle that, or really close family friend. He's like an uncle growing up, but who like works for ESPN and coached at Ohio State and all these things. There was like a time in my life I wanted to do that, but I've kind of come back down to earth with some things, and looking at realistically, what the next 5-10 years of my life will look like. And I don't think that's going to be a place I go down, unfortunately, at this point in time, but I think I can still have the love of that. And it's funny you mentioned that, like, you don't get the athlete or basketball player in me.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people that know me have known me for a long time, know me more as that than they do as a podcaster. So it's like,
That's so funny, dude. That's awesome.
there's a TED Talk. I encourage everyone to go listen to it. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, she's a Nigerian author, one of my favorites. She does this TED Talk called The Danger of the Single Story. And it's basically has a lot of thematic elements to what we've been talking about all day during this episode. But in short, it's just, you don't want to look at one person or one place or one thing and it's one story about them. It's not everything, right? We're all fighting a personal battle that nobody knows about behind closed doors. We all have, things we do that we, like I said, you had a lot of people, it just doesn't come up in conversation, the hoops thing a lot of the time, and vice versa. It might not come up in, the podcasting might not come up in people I work with typically don't ask me about my podcast, that especially my coaching realm. We're talking about basketball. We're not talking about podcasting,
Right.
It's, so I think people that, depending upon who you're talking to, would see me or describe me first as a very different thing at the beginning. If you're a student of mine, you're going to first say, "Oh, he's my teacher, or my coach," or you know me as the guy that runs Turntable Teachers, the music podcast,
Turntable
right? So it's like,
teachers, man. The professor out here.
so hopefully that answered your question and wasn't too long winded. But yeah, I guess my thing is people go watch that that TED Talk, because it's so informative. It really will kind of help people to really, I think, navigate this time too, especially. But
Yeah.
also at the same time, I think it will give people some perspective, and then just encourage people to do what they love. Don't chase money. Like,
That's a fact, and it won't work. They won't work if you chase money. You know what I mean? And that's what I think. Like, I'm definitely gonna check out that TED Talk for sure too. But I think that's what's people like you and a lot of people who are ambitious can also find out, and they really got to learn that lesson that it is realistic that like you can spread yourself thin quickly, even when you're highly motivated, even when you're doing stuff you're passionate about. And it's okay to have more than one passion and really workshop and find a plan that incorporates those things. You know what I mean? Because I think there's a little bit of an aversion to that too, because one, it takes a lot of hard work. If you're going to have multiple passions, then you better have multiple passions worth of work ethic and discipline. You know what I mean? But at the same time, a lot of people are scared to let themselves, have different kinds of passions in different fields, because there's the whole motto of like, focus on your one thing, do the 10,000 hours, yeah, like a jack of all trades kind of thing. That's really a master of none. Like, you find your one thing to lock in on, which is valid and really good advice. And for me in my world, I find one thing to lock in on, like my music that is in hip hop, that is so important to me at my core. But I'm realizing as an artist, as a man, as a young man growing up, like, and just as a person, that it takes also the same kind of reserve of energy that I'm using to like tap in creatively. I need to also use to like go outside and exercise,
yes,
also use to like do the bookkeeping that takes that like that organization, all those things. Or like if I am passionate in something else, like just I might have to replace one day, right? I've been telling myself like write a verse a day, do as much as you can. Like I'm just focus on something else because I'm passionate about that, and I can like let myself have that. But like managing it all is also difficult because I'm in school, I'm working, I'm trying to be dedicated to my craft,
oh, absolutely.
and sometimes it feels like the candle's burning from both sides. But at the same time, it's like that is like we had mentioned how I have that Gary V skit on my project.
Mhm.
Like Gary V is a big symbol for me, and of just a kind of figure that says like this is what it comes with. This comes with that territory. You know what I mean? If you want to excel at different things, then you have to teach yourself. And you won't always innately have it, but you got to teach yourself to love the process. Manage your work, manage your time, build a work ethic, be disciplined. And kind of like you were saying off of that TED Talk, that seemed to get at the fact that your life is happening on different kinds of levels simultaneously, and you're battling things, whether it's socially, physically, and you're going through things and you're experiencing things on different kinds of levels simultaneously. And even when you want to lock in on one facet of your life, like everything else that's happening in the background will inform that too. um and sometimes you need to know when to like sometimes you need to know when to like block it out, and then sometimes you need to know when to listen to yourself. And you know what I mean? And that takes building some kind of intuition, trust in yourself. It takes self-awareness, which is a lot of what Gary Vee talks about, even though he's a polarizing figure to people. um but
I,
yeah.
I personally love Gary Vee. I think just for the he talks a lot about what I'm saying too, and I've really gotten a lot of that, some of that from him, is where it's like, I mean, it's really been my mindset the whole time, where I've my whole life I've wanted to do what I love, because I just my situation, just watching some people that around me growing up, you know they didn't chase what they wanted to do, and they weren't happy in their life because of it. And I just saw that, and I said, I don't want to be that. It's not where I want to be when I'm in my 20s and 30s and I'm older, 40s, whatever.
Same.
And so I just pursued whatever I wanted to do. Yeah, exactly. And again, that doesn't mean that there isn't like intricate things within life that, sometimes we all don't want to do, but we'd have to do them anyway. You know what I mean? So, but again, when it comes to the creative and the work and, just however it is you're going to make a living, doing what you love, you're going to be passionate about, you're going to do it, but you're just going to do a better job at it if you love it, and I love to hear that, like there's a lot of underground artists. They're not just artists. They have maybe 9 to 5s, or they're doing, working a job. And this is like a second thing. The same thing, me, like the podcasting, it's a second thing right now, second or third thing even, but it's a passion. And, it takes after school, takes time to come home, right. And do it. And I'm so lucky just as a teacher's schedule that I have time floating around to actually like work on this stuff. But, it takes time, right? When I could just be lounging around doing nothing, I just choose to be productive. So, cause I love it, but it's,
Man.
it comes with the territory, unfortunately. So, or fortunately rather, however you look at it. But
And it's just not always, like even working in the process, like when you're in the trenches of it, that's what it is, it's like the trenches, like, and sometimes you have to let yourself, like sometimes that'll push people away and they're like, maybe I'm not really passionate about it enough, because I'm not super hyped, super on 10, you feel me, like all the time, and it's not always just coming, nah son, like it's like the reality is like you can have a real passion and desire deep down and your essence and your spirit, but there will be tons of resistance and things and distractions and other reasons that you can let stop you, you know what I mean? And some of them will be better and more rational reasons to stop than others. But if you're really passionate about something, for me it's like I just want to be as involved in the field that I'm passionate about, that is art and performing. I want to be involved in that in whatever capacity I can, because it'll allow me, like, even if the work isn't always, the funnest, like there will be those moments and those times where like my passion and my job overlap, you know what I mean? And there are people who have to compartmentalize so much, they have the 9 to 5 that is their money maker, but really like the only place in their life that occupies is making money, you know what I mean? Which you're also spending so much time there, and that can be soul crushing.
Exactly. 1,000%. And I agree. And this has been one of the more unique podcasts I've done. And I just want to thank you for all the time you've given today. You certainly need to have you on again, because there's just I think so much more that we can talk about. So
Definitely, man.
Listeners of the podcast, I don't think this will be the last time we've heard from Phoenix Rios at all. But that will be it for today's episode. And I think that, like I said, this was just so enlightening for me. And I hope that everybody else got as much out of this that I won't speak for you, but as much as I got out of this, I really, like I said, appreciate all your insight today and for this episode. And I'm sure my audience does too.
That's my girlfriend in the back. Hi.
What up?
But I'll say, yeah, thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate it. The Turntable Teachers is a dope platform that you're taking seriously, and I think we can all see that and read that. So just thank you for having me on. I want to plug real quick, man. I got my Nocturnal mixtape is out right now on all popular streaming services. You can see me on socials at the Phoenix Rios. That's THE Phoenix, like the city, RIOS, on my socials. And you can also just search Phoenix Rios on your streaming services. And if you guys could run back my last mixtape, man, I think it's that would at least just really mean a lot to me. And Mike, I totally hope we can actually, keep some kind of rapport and really talk, because this was a really cool ass conversation, man.
No, this was again, like I said, one of the most unique ones I've had so far, and really just I appreciate all your time and allowing us to have this type of conversation. It was brilliant. It was enlightening for me, and like I said, I'm sure it was for people here too. And like I said, people almost forgot we were talking to a music artist this whole time, right? Like check out this, bro. Next time we'll actually get more into the music. I didn't even ask you like my dream song, but that's okay.
Dude, that's good. I came into here like I'm here to promo, but I came in here really just a fan of the conversations and like the fan of hip hop and music. So that's what I wanted to have more than anything. And if you guys give a fuck enough to go tune in, I appreciate y'all. But if not, I hope this was just fun to listen to.
Give a fuck enough. The link in the description, guys, is going to be Nocturnal, the brand new EP from Phoenix Rios. Make sure you guys go run that up, check it out. Like I said, linked in the description. We'll actually link his Instagram in the description as well, so that'll be in there. If you're a fan of Phoenix Rios coming on to us for the first time, follow us at Turntable Teachers on Instagram. Any podcast streaming service you use, just look us up. We will pop up. That's all linked in the bio of our Instagram as well. And then head to our website, www.turntableteachers.com, for all the latest blogs, episodes, merch. People that are fans of us, you already know what's good. Phoenix Rios, thank you so much for everything, bro. This has been an incredible episode.
Turntable teachers, man.
Mike, this is Phoenix Rios, Turntable Teachers, and class is officially dismissed.